Hi, and with the AMA later on tonight, from my point of view, this afternoon if you're in America, or goodness knows what time if you're elsewhere, there could be some absolutely fantastic news coming, or there could not. Personally, I think it's about damage limitation. And what I was thinking is, I'm going to be talking about BFA now. It's been in a few weeks. I've obviously talked about it through the alpha and beta, but then it was alpha and beta and people say, oh, it's only testing, don't be so down. Now it's in, now it's settled, we're not into testing. And there's going to be a little bit of criticism, I think it's fair to say. But do you know what? I'm a casual now and I'm still playing the game. So I must like it. And I do like it. There was a time when I quit raiding, I quit the game. And that did happen once before. And I haven't now. I'm still playing it and I'm still enjoying playing it. So there must be some really great things. So what I thought is, it's Friday. Happy Friday. Let's start on a good note. And I'm going to go through what I think are my 5 favourite features of BFA so far. So in first place, it's not really first place, it's just number 1 on the list, I think is the Scrapper. I love the Scrapper, even though for me personally it's a bit of an annoyance, because it does what enchanters have been able to do for ages. Anyone else getting gear, especially now with raids, it doesn't really matter whether you're casual or whether you're a raider, you're getting loads and loads of gear, and most of it's epic gear, and it's just trash. And wouldn't it be great if you could do something with it? As an enchanter, of course, you can disenchant it into materials. I mean, another noticeable thing from an enchanting point of view is the last few years, there's fewer and fewer pieces needed enchanting. And now where we are is, gloves have an enchant, but we only really need to enchant rings and weapon now. That's basically it. If you're an enchanter, as I am, then there's the old wrists as well. But again, that's a novelty value. I'm not saying it has no practical use, but it's not useful in the normal sense. The ones that increase the power of our character, weapon and rings only. So until you're replacing those, you don't really need many enchants, which means you don't need materials. But you could always sell the materials. There would still always be a ready market somehow for them. So you could use it for that. But everyone else, if you weren't an enchanter, you just had to vend it. There was nothing else to be done about it. Now there is. And isn't it fantastic? You can put it into the Scrapper, get some raw materials. You still have the option of vending it if you want, but you can get some raw materials from it. Isn't that nice? Isn't that really useful? I think that's a fantastic idea. And, couldn't see it coming. It was an absolutely brilliant idea. I think it's fantastic. Second, the contracts. When I first, in Legion, when they first introduced the tomes for changing the talents, it wasn't just myself. There was a number of other people just thought, yeah, this is something you're doing to give scribes some relevance again, isn't it? People didn't like the idea of scribes making something that you needed to be able to change your talents unless you're in that rest area. And it just seemed to be giving scribes some relevance instead of getting rid of them, because they came into the game for their glyphs, and with the glyphs being scaled right back for Legion, it almost seemed there was not much point in them anymore. Traditionally, they could also make stays, but they weren't very good anyway. And of course, that was right out the window for Legion. But with BFA, okay, so they're still making the tomes, still don't like that. But being able to make the contract seems actually useful. Absolutely fantastic. The idea, because of the rep grind, okay, I don't like the rep grind. I've never liked rep grinds at the start of an expansion, or indeed at any time in an expansion. But if we're going to have them, then the idea that you can do something to focus on the rep that you really want to get up ASAP, when there's a number of reputation factions to pursue, is fantastic. Okay, I much preferred it back in the days when you just put a tabard on, go into a dungeon and get rep for that faction. That was great. I was doing dungeons, it's PvE, it's what I wanted to do. Okay, those days are gone, but the idea that you can use a contract and just say, do you know what, I'll get a little bit more rep with Champions of Azeroth or Tortolan Seekers or whoever else, is really nice. It's sort of a little bit cocked up to start with, because I was describing it before the expansion launched as, oh yeah, and it'll keep scribes in a bit of money because they're consumable, they'll need to be used every now and then. And then they lasted forever, and it's like, oh, this is weird. When did they change that? Turns out that was a bit of a bug, so that's changed now. So each week you need to replenish it. So, that's really it's useful for scribes, gives them something to be able to produce. but it's also useful for the player whilst you're on those rep grinds, which isn't going to be all the way through the expansion, but presumably every time a new area. I assume there's going to be at least once more during the expansion where they're going to open up a whole new area again, and there's going to be new factions to pursue. The idea that you can say, well, you know, out of the new factions, that's the one I want to get quickest, you know, great idea. 3, this is something more of a reactive change rather than a planned change, but it was very, very welcome. So at the start of the expansion, we had problems with the auction house. There were times when I couldn't even use it. It wasn't just that I didn't have the patience to use it. I just couldn't. I just couldn't work it. Because of people primarily shoving. I mean, you're always going to get people putting on a lot of materials at the start of an expansion. But putting on 1,000 stacks of one, these people are worse than Hitler, seriously. So when Blizzard didn't put a stop to it, but massively dissuaded you from putting that on it by sort of saying, right, we're going to hefty up the deposit, because of course these people putting on 1,000 stacks of one, they were not going to sell their 1,000 stacks of one, they were going to sell some of them. That's not the reason they put them on in stacks of one. So by costing them an arm and a leg for all the unsold ones they would get because they'd lose that deposit, bearing in mind you get your deposit back if it does sell, so it's no hardship to those who are putting on sensible stacks. That was a fantastic idea. Brilliant idea. I was told that they are looking at doing something long term. I don't know. I can't remember Blizzard saying this, but someone assures me they have said that they want to do something. I think it's something like in Diablo, where you basically go on when it's a reagent or something. You say, look, do you know what? I just want 350 of these things. Just give it to me for the cheapest price that people have put it on the market for. That would be great. But in the meantime, it now means the auction house works. There's still loads of stuff on it. It's still slow. But at least it works, and it's not too slow. So that's absolutely fantastic. And the fact that it is reactive as well, I applaud that, because, you know, they've identified a problem there. They thought, how can we deal with it? And this is Blizzard at their best, where they go, okay, right, here is a problem that we need to deal with. They've come up with something innovative that has solved it, a very simple solution that just solved it overnight. And that's fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Now, the 4th one, I would almost say is the best feature. In terms of game features, it's absolutely the best feature. And it does keep surprising people when I say this, knowing who I am. Those who don't know who I am might not be surprised at all. And I think it's war mode. And people will be surprised at this, because I am someone who dislikes world PvP in World of Warcraft. Not in general. There are games where I think it's fantastic. I just think it's done very, very badly in World of Warcraft. But the war mode feature I do think is fantastic. And the reason is because, you know, many years ago I existed purely on PvE realms. Eventually it became obvious that raiding guilds, for whatever reason, just tended to be on PvP realms. So it got to the point where to find a suitable guild, there were just non-recruiting at a particular time when I wanted to find one on PvE realms, and I moved to a PvP realm thinking, well, it probably won't be too bad, I'm very well geared, and indeed it wasn't actually as bad as I feared. But then go on your low level outs and different matter. But I never really liked it. And then people would complain at me, say, why are you whining about all the time? Why don't you just go on a PvE server? And trying to explain to them, well, I need to go into the server where the guilds are. So the fact that they've brought this in is fantastic, because what it now means is that I am not restricted in terms of guilds I can apply for. I mean, I never was anyway, because I just sucked it up and went to the PvP realms and then carried on moaning about it. But now it's like I can be in a guild where everyone else wants to be on effectively a PvP realm, but I'm the PvE realmer. That's fine. That's great. That's my choice. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's brilliant. There are a couple of little wriggles with it. I mean, one is that I can't help summon, because everyone else in my Mythic Plus group seems to be war mode on. They think it's useful. I find it tedious. So I can't help summon. I can be summoned, but not help summon. Nice, get to put my feet up. Although I'm usually the first one there anyway. And the other little thing I would say, but I don't think this is, I'm not going to be critical of this. I noted someone tweeting, Asmongold retweeted it earlier in the week, saying, isn't it nice to see PvE players doing PvP? To which I thought at that point, no, it's not. The problem there, and this isn't war mode actually, it's PvP in general. It's not nice because some of those players are doing it In fact, I know that because I know that these PvE players that wouldn't be ordinarily doing it, they're doing it out of compulsion. And if I were a raider, I'd be doing it out of compulsion too. But the problem is there is a fine line between offering up a sensible incentive to do some content and compelling people to do it. So I'm not going to be too critical about that. But I do think it's great that war mode exists, that it's really good for the people who enjoy the world PvP in the game. The fact that the PvP rewards is a much more accessible system now, again for people who are into their PvP. And for me, who's not at all into it, in this game at any rate, I do love it in some other games, but in World of Warcraft I hate it. And I don't have to do it, and I do not feel the need to do it, and I can opt out of it entirely. I think it's great. And it's the best game feature. But it's not the best feature for me. The best feature is actually maybe another one that's a little bit surprising, and I think it's the storyline. Now, I have criticised, and I continue to criticise, certain aspects of the storyline that they're making either inconsistent or just baffling. You know, in terms of the motivations, just doesn't make sense. Sure, they've done things like that I think are poor. But what I mean here is, there's so many people talking about the story. There's so many people excited for the story in Battle for Azeroth. And it's not like this is usual. Yes, people enjoy the story of World of Warcraft. They always have. Well, from Warcraft 2, should we say. But I wasn't there for the start of Cataclysm, because that's one of those times when I'd quit the game. But every other expansion, I've been there at the start. I cannot recall ever the launch of an expansion coming with such fevered discussions about the story of that expansion. There are so many people excited about it, to the point of fever pitch sometimes. But the fact that so many people are excited about it, so many people are speculating on what may happen, what may not happen, trying to draw threads from what's gone on before to try and work it out, I think it's fantastic. It's a role-playing game, ultimately, and a role-playing game is very, very story-driven. And the fact that so many people are focusing on aspects of the storyline and not just the gameplay, not just the game features, which are also, of course, massively important. Even for all the criticisms I have, and still have, you know, they're still ridiculous, some of these things. But the fact that the story has got so many people excited, I think is a brilliant feature. And because of that, and I think players, whether they're serious players or more casual players, even the ones who are so casual that they only subscribe for a couple of months and then unsubscribe and then come back for a couple of months, the ones that Blizzard really wanted to keep subscribed, they will at the very least, even while unsubscribed, I'm quite certain, be keeping an eye on the storyline in the game. The interest is there. It's basically they've turned WoW, certainly this expansion of the BFA, into like a soap opera, really. People are excited to find out what happens next. A lot of the discussion that I see about upcoming patches isn't about features. It isn't so much about new raids, new dungeons, new zones. It's about the story. It's about what's next in the chapter. I think that's absolutely fantastic. But one little bonus thing to leave you with as well, wasn't really as part of my 5, but just something of interest I came across a couple of days ago when I was pottering around doing a stream, and I basically said, should I do a bit of LFR? Should I do, maybe I'll get something Titanforge, you never know. And because with Mythic out, the first wing of LFR is also out. And everyone's going, oh, it's a nightmare. Oh, wait till you get to Mother. It's absolutely terrible. It's actually all right. It's okay. I have to confess, I must confess, there was a point on Mother when I did lose it. They're going back over. Holy shit. Oh my god. Don't go back over. But the other thing is that I would say to that, I was heavily influenced by people telling me how awful it was. So when what happened, I was utterly convinced this was just the beginning of the end and we were going to wipe. But no, one shot everything. Everyone was just exaggerating. It's a right laugh. Going to LFR this weekend. It's a massive laugh. We one-shot everything. Everyone behaved like baboons, but we one-shot everything. Fantastic. Can't wait for the rest of it. Well, we're not going to wipe by the looks of it. It looks alright. This is alright, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit of a nightmare, but as long as you don't wipe. So anyway, those are my favourite features. Let's start the weekend on a high before I bring you all down over the weekend. Maybe, who knows, we'll see. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. Until next time, I'll see you later.